The Art of the Break. How Elite Dribbling Changed the Game. Chapter 1. The Breakthrough Moves That Redefined Ball Handling. The story of elite dribbling in basketball didn't just start with flashy street ball moves or well-executed tricks. It started with players who took the ball in their hands and decided that dribbling wasn't just about getting from one place to another. It became an art form, a weapon to dismantle defenses, break ankles, and leave defenders guessing. It was a movement that evolved in real time. Enter the spotlight of the NBA, driven by players who redefined what it meant to have control over the game. Players like Allen Iverson, Kyrie Irving, Tiny Archibald, and Tim Hardaway didn't just cross players over, they changed the game with their handles. It all started when Allen Iverson made his splash into the NBA, bringing with him a game-changing stutter step and crossover that left defenders wondering if their ankles would ever recover. This wasn't your standard crossover, this was something else entirely. Iverson's exaggerated stutter step crossover was an unpredictable blur, a sudden jolt in pace that forced defenders into hesitation. This wasn't about running around a defender, it was about making the defense guess, making them freeze. While Iverson danced around them, his moves weren't just slick, they were calculated and deadly, catching even the most seasoned players off guard. The evolution of the game, from fundamentals to breakneck creative. Before Iverson's rival, coaches would drill players to minimize dribbling. The belief was always that dribbling too much meant you were wasting valuable time, and often your dribble was better off used for simply setting up the play. But Iverson, with his crossover, made people rethink that logic. If you had the handle, there was no such thing as dribbling too much. When you could break down a defense as thoroughly as Iverson did, every dribble had the potential to collapse a defense, creating lanes for easy scoring. Iverson's speed, agility, and tight control gave him the freedom to break free from defenders and create opportunities on his own terms. Then came the Euro step. It didn't matter if it was a move that originated overseas, if it worked, it worked. And the Euro step quickly became a go-to for players looking to evade defenders in the lane. The move wasn't just about footwork, it was about changing pace and direction in such a way that defenders were left stranded in midair, unable to react in time. It was unpredictable, hard to defend, and gave ball handlers the advantage in tight situations. Alongside the Euro step came the step-back jumper, another modern staple of today's game. The beauty of the step-back isn't just the separation it creates, but the space it opens up for the shooter to get off an uncontested shot. It's a move that combines athleticism and skill, and players like James Harden have mastered it to the point where it's nearly impossible to defend. Street ball legends, the hidden masters of dribbling. While the NBA was refining these moves, it was the street ball culture that elevated them. Ed Booger Smith and Charles Jones from Seoul in the Hole weren't just street ball legends, they were innovators. Their style of dribbling wasn't about flashy maneuvers for show, it was about dominance. Booger Smith's handle was slick and quick, full of behind-the-back moves and spin moves that kept defenders on their toes. Meanwhile, like Skip to my Lou Rafer Alston, whose ball handling was as much about showing off creativity as it was about keeping the defender guessing. Skip could break anyone down, and with his street ball finesse, he became a legend in both street leagues and the NBA, known for his killer crossovers and smooth, unpredictable style. And who could forget Jason Williams, aka White Chocolate? His rookie year with the Sacramento Kings was a revelation. Known for his behind-the-back passes, flashy crossovers, and overall court vision, Williams was a street baller in the NBA, bringing a level of creativity that was rarely seen in the league. He wasn't just breaking defenders down, he was making them look like they didn't know what hit them. Williams brought a level of unpredictability that made every move feel like a surprise. Allen Iverson, the man who shook MJ. But at the heart of it all was Allen Iverson, a player who didn't just revolutionize the crossover, he took it to an entirely different level. His iconic double crossover against Michael Jordan is still regarded as one of the greatest moments in NBA history. The way Iverson shook MJ, a defender widely regarded as one of the best to ever play the game, was a testament to his skill and fearlessness. That moment wasn't just about breaking Jordan down, it was about showing the world that even the greatest players could be humbled by a well-timed move. Iverson's handle was built on the principle of unpredictability. He didn't rely on just one move, he had an entire arsenal at his disposal, and it was the precision, timing, and creativity of his moves that allowed him to take over the game, even when the pressure was at its highest. Kyrie Irving, the modern master. Fast forward to the present day, and Kyrie Irving is the living embodiment of dribbling evolution. What Iverson did with raw aggression, Kyrie has perfected with control, finesse, and change of pace. Kyrie's handle is not just effective, it's mesmerizing. His dribbling can move defenders with the slightest flick of the wrist, and his ability to switch gears instantly makes him nearly impossible to stop. Whether it's a killer crossover, a hesitation dribble, or a behind the back that leaves defenders lost in the dust. Kyrie's creativity has made him one of the most skilled ball handlers to ever grace the NBA floor. Irving's game is the culmination of everything that came before him. From Iverson's aggressive speed to the street ball moves of Skip and Booger, Kyrie's handle blends street ball innovation with NBA-level control. It's the kind of handle that doesn't just break ankles, it controls the game, making defenders constantly second-guess themselves. The evolution of elite dribbling, a legacy at the end of the day. Dribbling is more than just a move. It's a statement. It's about telling your opponent, "You can't stop me." It's about breaking down defenses, shaking defenders out of their shoes, and creating space where there's none. Players like Iverson, Kyrie, Booger, Skip, and Jason Williams have shown us that dribbling isn't just for getting from point A to point B, it's the beginning of everything that happens after. And if you can master that handle, you can change the game. Chapter 2, The Anatomy of a Killer Crossover. Mastering the moves that break defenders' dribble isn't just a means of getting past a defender, it's an art form that requires precision, timing, and above all, creativity. The crossover dribble, a move that has become synonymous with ankle-breaking ball handling, is arguably the most devastating weapon in any ball handler's arsenal. But a true master of the crossover isn't just trying to fool their defender, they're setting up a series of movements that ultimately force the defense into a position of vulnerability. Let's break down the anatomy of a killer crossover and explore why players like Allen Iverson, Kyrie Irving, and others have turned this move into a science. The crossover, not just a simple move, crossover has been around since the early days of basketball, but it wasn't until Allen Iverson and later Kyrie Irving hit the NBA that the move truly evolved into something game-changing. A basic crossover is just a simple change of direction. You dribble the ball from one hand to the other, typically crossing the ball over your body. Simple enough, right? But what sets the greats apart isn't just the mechanics of the move, but the timing, deception, and rhythm they bring to it. Iverson's exaggerated crossover, the birth of the ankle breaker. What made Iverson's crossover stand out wasn't just a move itself, it was the exaggerated stutter step that accompanied it. Iverson's first move wasn't just about crossing the ball over his body, it was about getting the defender to commit to one direction, and then swiftly changing pace. That split-second hesitation that Iverson used before exploding with the crossover was deadly. It froze defenders, and in the blink of an eye, they found themselves left behind. This wasn't just dribbling, it was a chess match. Iverson would set you up, make you think he was going one way, and then snatch the ball back and explode in the opposite direction, leaving defenders grasping at air. Iverson's crossover wasn't just a flashy move, it was efficient, precise, and above all, effective. It didn't need to be complicated to be lethal. It was a move that created space and open lanes for Iverson to get to the rim, but it also allowed him to break down defenses that were designed to stop him. Kyrie Irving, the modern-day crossover artist. Fast forward to the present, and Kyrie Irving has taken the crossover to a level that only a handful of players could even imagine. Kyrie's handle is often described as unpredictable, and for good reason. He doesn't just use one crossover or even one variation, his moveset is ever-evolving. Where Iverson was known for his raw aggression, Kyrie's game is built on control, change of speed, and seamless fluidity. His crossovers blend in seamlessly with his hesitation moves and behind-the-back dribbles, creating a puzzle that defenders can't solve. What makes Kyrie's crossover so effective is his ability to manipulate the defender's body. He'll often use a change of speed to lull defenders to sleep before hitting them with a quick, sharp crossover. That quick change of pace forces the defender to make a decision, and once they're leaning in one direction, it's already too late. Kyrie's ball control is second to none. His ability to keep the ball on a string while shifting directions at lightning speed is what makes him such a dangerous player in isolation. When Kyrie has the ball, there's always an air of unpredictability. Even the defenders can't know for sure what's coming next. Tiny Archibald, Tim Hardaway, and the early masters. But before Iverson and Kyrie, there were a few players who had already perfected the art of the crossover. Take Tiny Archibald, for example. Archibald was one of the first to truly master the crossover dribble at a high level. His ball handling was smooth, his crossovers sharp, and his ability to explode past defenders was unparalleled for his time. Archibald didn't have the flashiness of today's ball handlers, but he had the precision. His crossovers weren't about showboating, they were about getting to the basket with minimal effort. Tiny was one of the first players to show that a deadly crossover didn't need to be flashy, it just needed to be effective. Then, there was Tim Hardaway, known for his deadly killer crossover. Hardaway's move was a thing of beauty, a quick, tight crossover that sent defenders stumbling backward. Hardaway had a low-to-the-ground dribble that made his move even more deceptive. His killer crossover was like a sudden jolt. If a defender was caught off guard, it was over. Hardaway's crossover was a prime example of how the move didn't need to be flashy, just fast and deceptive. It wasn't about making defenders look foolish. It was about breaking them down and getting to the rim without resistance. The street ball influence, from Seoul in the whole to the basketball culture, also had a huge influence on how crossovers were executed and perceived. Players like Ed Booger Smith, Charles Jones, and Rafer Alston Skip to My Lou brought a level of creativity and flair to the move that the NBA hadn't yet seen. The legendary Seoul in the whole basketball tournaments were breeding grounds for some of the most innovative ball handlers to ever hit the blacktop. Booger Smith's crossover was like a dance, fluid, rhythmic, and designed to keep defenders on skates. Charles Jones, known for his flashy street ball style, brought a level of improvisation to the move that made it impossible to predict. These players didn't just cross over to get to the basket, they crossed over to embarrass defenders. They understood that breaking the ankles of an opponent wasn't just about getting to the hoop, it was about establishing dominance on the court, letting the opponent know they were at your mercy. The legacy of the crossover, more than just a move at its core, the crossover is about more than just beating a defender. It's about breaking down the defense's mental barrier. When you cross someone over, it's a psychological battle as much as a physical one. The defender has to be thinking 2 steps ahead, trying to predict which direction the ball handler will go, but by the time they make a decision, the play is already over. It's about forcing your opponent into a position where they have no choice but to watch as you blow by them. The players mentioned Iverson, Kyrie, Tiny, Hardaway, and those from the street ball scene have all made their mark in history, not just by executing the crossover to perfection, but by understanding that it's more than just a move, it's a weapon, an essential part of the basketball arsenal. And as the game continues to evolve, one thing is clear, the crossover will always be a fundamental part of the game, a skill that separates the good from the great. Chapter 3, The Foundation of Footwork and Body Control, How Great Handles Create Separation. The difference between a good dribbler and a great one often comes down to more than just the moves themselves. It's about footwork and body control. A player might have the smoothest, flashiest dribble, but without the ability to pivot, shift weight, and move with balance and speed, they won't be able to make defenders bite on their moves, nor will they have the separation they need to score. In this chapter, we'll break down the essential elements of footwork and body control that separate players like Kyrie Irving, Allen Iverson, and Tim Hardaway from the rest. These elements are the foundation that allows players to execute their killer moves, make defenders second-guess themselves, and get to the basket no matter the defense. The art of the pivot, more than just a turn, footwork is everything when it comes to ball handling. In fact, one of the most underrated aspects of a player's dribbling ability is their pivot. A pivot isn't just a turn, it's a way of maintaining balance while keeping your defender on your hip. Iverson mastered the art of the reverse pivot, and this move allowed him to change direction on a dime while keeping his dribble intact. For many players, learning to pivot properly can be a game changer. A great pivot allows a player to maintain control while setting up their next move. Kyrie Irving, for example, uses his pivot to keep his defender off balance. Whether it's a quick change of direction or a move to escape pressure, the reverse pivot is particularly useful in high-pressure situations, where a player has to quickly shift their weight without losing their handle or creating an opening for the defender to steal the ball. This simple skill allows players to move in any direction, whether it's for a quick drive or to pull up for a jumper. Body control. The hidden skill behind the crossover. Body control is arguably the most difficult skill to master as a ball handler, but it's what separates the elite from the rest. Allen Iverson's killer crossover wasn't just about the ball in his hand, it was about how his body shifted and exploded when making the move. Players like Iverson, Kyrie Irving, and Tim Hardaway excel because they can move in one direction and explosively change direction in a split second without losing balance or speed. Their body control allows them to read the defender's movements and adjust accordingly. Kyrie's ability to stay low to the ground while executing his moves is what makes his dribbling so effective. Being able to lower your center of gravity means you have more control, and when you change directions from that position, you're harder to stop. The deeper the stance, the more leverage you have to explode, whether it's into a drive or a pull-up jumper. Players who lack body control often overcompensate with unnecessary movements, leading to turnovers and lost opportunities. But players like Jason Williams' White Chocolate took it to another level, using body control to throw off defenders, not just with their moves, but with their deliberate awkwardness, using what appeared to be off-balance, unorthodox moves to fake out their defenders. Changing pace. The subtlety of speed dribbling is about more than just making moves, it's about knowing when to accelerate and when to decelerate. This is where changing pace becomes one of the most effective tools in a ball handler's arsenal. Iverson was a master of this, using the quickness of his first step to freeze defenders before changing speeds and darting past them. It's the same concept that made Kyrie Irving's dribbling so lethal. He might start by moving at a moderate pace, only to explode with a sudden burst that leaves defenders with no time to react. Changing pace is subtle, but it's highly effective. It makes a defender second-guess their anticipation, forcing them to commit to early or too late. The key here is not just to have the speed to blow by your opponent, but the ability to control that speed. Too often, players think speed is everything and end up rushing their moves or losing control of their dribble. The best ball handlers use their speed to create momentum, but they don't force it, they let the defender's reactions dictate the pace. Separation, creating room to operate at the end of the day. All the footwork, body control, and changes in pace mean nothing unless a player is able to create separation from their defender. Separation is the key to getting off a clean shot or driving to the basket without interference. Players like Iverson and Kyrie Irving were so effective at creating separation because they could execute their moves in a way that forced defenders into poor positions. Whether it was with a step-back jumper, a quick hesitation dribble, or a lethal crossover, they consistently put defenders in a position where they had to play catch-up. But what's important to understand is that creating separation isn't just about the dribble, it's about reading the defense. A great dribbler doesn't just go full speed ahead, hoping for the best. Instead, they are constantly gauging the defense's positioning and using their handle to exploit the smallest of openings. A slight hesitation, a quick change of direction, or even a hard dribble in the wrong direction can create the space necessary to get a clean shot off or blow by a defender for a layup. Street ball influence, the flow of the game in the streets. The game moves faster and the defense is often more aggressive. Ball handlers from the street ball scene like Skip to My Lou Rafer Alston and Ed Booger Smith understood that creating separation didn't always require a complicated move. Often, it was about selling the defender on something that wasn't there, a fake, a hesitation, or a quick stutter step that forced the defender into the wrong position. Booger Smith's ability to manipulate his body with fluidity was unmatched, and Skip to My Lou perfected the art of the in-and-out dribble to break defenders down. In street ball, you don't always have the luxury of a set play or a structured offense.